No glory, no respect, plenty of social isolation, and a lifetime of haunting nightmares. Welcome to life as an executioner in feudal Japan, where your career success depends on how efficiently you can separate a person from their head. Imagine being so good at your job that society decides you're actually quite bad for society. In feudal Japan, executioners were called eta, literally abundantly filthy, and belonged to the burakumin, the outcast class deemed ritually impure by the rest of Japanese society. While samurai were writing poetry about cherry blossoms in honor, you were figuring out the optimal angle for separating a neck from its shoulders while trying not to get blood on your only decent kimono. Let's start with your housing situation. As an executioner, you didn't get to live in the nice part of town. No, you were relegated to special burakumin ghettos on the outskirts of the city, because nothing says welcome to the neighborhood like forcing someone to live near the local garbage dump. Your community might include tanners, butchers, undertakers, and others who handle dead things or animal products. Basically anyone whose job involved blood, death, or cow hides. Together, you formed a vibrant community of social pariahs who couldn't enter normal establishments without causing mass hysteria. Picture this. It's a warm summer evening in 17th century Edo. Villagers Votaro Chikami has been tasked with removing the head of a convicted criminal the next morning. Does he get to enjoy a relaxing drink at the local sake house to calm his nerves? Absolutely not. The moment he slides open the door, conversation stops, mothers clutch their children, and the owner nervously suggests that perhaps Sir would be more comfortable drinking elsewhere. Perhaps in a ditch with the other unclean folk. But I'm just doing my job, protests Votaro. Yes, says the owner. A job that involves cutting people's heads off. Please leave before you contaminate our drinking cups with your executionerness. And it's not like the job itself was particularly rewarding. You weren't honored for upholding justice like a magistrate or admired for your martial prowess like a samurai. Instead, you were viewed as a necessary evil, emphasis on the evil part. People believed that handling death professionally meant you absorbed the spiritual pollution of your victims. Congratulations. You're now basically a walking, talking bad omen. The technical aspects of the job weren't exactly a breeze either. The primary tool of your trade was the katana, but not the beautiful, masterfully crafted blades that samurai carried. No, executioners typically received lower quality weapons because apparently dismembering criminals doesn't require craftsmanship. Yet society still expected a clean cut on the first try. Nothing caused more embarrassment or angry ghost stories than a botched execution where you needed multiple swings. Remember, Votaro, your father might have told you while passing down the family business. Aim for the vertebrae between C3 and C4, swing from the hips, not the arms, and for heaven's sake, make sure your blade is sharp. The last thing you need is to be halfway through a neck when your sword gets stuck. That's how you get a reputation. Speaking of family business, that's exactly what execution was. The profession was hereditary, passed down from father to son like an unwanted heirloom that happened to be really good at decapitation. Were you harboring dreams of becoming a merchant, farmer, or literally anything else that didn't involve separating body parts? Too bad. The rigid class system of feudal Japan meant you were born an executioner, would live as an executioner, and die as an executioner. Talk about a cutting career path. And the professional development opportunities? Non-existent. There were no executioner conventions where you could network with colleagues and exchange tips on the latest beheading techniques. Have you tried the new downward diagonal slash? It reduces splatter by 30%. Instead, you worked in isolation, learning through the time-honored tradition of trial and error, with the errors being particularly gruesome. The pay was another sore point. Executioners were typically compensated per head, which meant your income was directly tied to the local crime rate and the shogunate's mood regarding civil offenses. Economic recession? Hope you enjoy eating millet instead of rice. Peaceful period with minimal capital punishment? Maybe it's time to develop a side hustle in grave digging. Then there was the matter of your work attire. To perform an execution, you'd wear a special outfit that usually included a hood to conceal your identity. Not for your protection, mind you, the hood was primarily to minimize the psychological impact on the condemned. Heaven forbid the poor soul about to lose their head should be traumatized by seeing your face. But the hood also served a practical purpose. It prevented the executioner from being recognized in public, reducing the chance of awkward encounters at the fish market. "Excuse me, aren't you the man who beheaded my cousin last week?" "No, you must be thinking of some other 6-foot-tall man with unusually developed right arm muscles and a 1,000-yard stare." Let's not forget the psychological toll. After a day of separating souls from bodies, you couldn't exactly unwind by talking about your workday struggles over dinner. "How was work today, dear?" your wife might ask. "Oh, the usual. The daimyo ordered 3 beheadings, and the second one had a really thick neck. Nearly threw out my shoulder. And then the magistrate complained that I got blood on his new sandals. As if I can control arterial spray. Some people, I tell you." At this point, your children would be staring wide-eyed at their rice bowls, reconsidering their inevitable career path. And the nightmares. Historical records suggest many executioners suffered from what we now recognize as post-traumatic stress. Imagine closing your eyes each night only to see the faces of those you've dispatched staring back at you. It's no wonder many executioners turned to heavy sake consumption as a coping mechanism. There were some peculiar superstitions surrounding executioners too. The blood of executed criminals was believed to have medicinal properties, which meant people might approach you after an execution asking for blood-soaked cloth. Nothing breaks up the monotony of a workday like being asked if you have any spare human blood for someone's rheumatism cure. Even your tools carried stigma. An executioner's sword was considered permanently tainted. When Votaro eventually grew too old to continue his duties and his son took over, the family sword would be passed down, not as a proud heirloom but as a cursed necessity. The blade that had taken hundreds of lives was believed to carry the grudges of those it had killed. Sleep tight knowing that's hanging on your wall. The final insult? After a lifetime of social ostracism, professional isolation, psychological trauma, and spiritual pollution, your funeral would likely be conducted separately from normal people. Even in death, the executioner remained an outsider. So next time you're feeling down about your 9 to 5 desk job, remember Votaro Chikami, the feudal Japanese executioner. His career literally involved taking heads off shoulders, and society still had the audacity to look down on him for it. Talk about a thankless job. At least modern unemployment doesn't come with the risk of being possessed by vengeful spirits. In the end, being an executioner in feudal Japan was the original definition of a dead-end job. You spent your whole life helping others reach their end, only to be treated like you were already dead yourself. If there's one thing worse than being condemned to death in feudal Japan, it was being condemned to life as the one who carried out the sentence. After all, the only thing sharper than an executioner's blade was the cutting irony that someone so intimately involved with delivering justice was never treated justly himself.